For every person, there's a moment
My wife and I lost our home to a fire.
when they discover that the world
When the second plane hit, it changed me.
and everything they hold dear
They placed in my arms my first son.
Tornado on the ground, phone lines are down.
Suicide.
can be taken away.
And that's why I'm a prepper.
That's why I'm a prepper.
And that's why I am a prepper.
Get to cover!
While some hope for the best,
This is a little bit more than I expected. Jesus.
these three are preparing for the worst.
I can't breathe.
They are Doomsday Preppers.
We were living the American dream. We had a beautiful house and a beautiful neighborhood, and suddenly people who owned homes in our neighborhood were foreclosed on, or they had to rent out to multiple families. So we had 4 or 5 families living in a single home, and it wasn't long after that the crime went up in the neighborhood, and we suddenly had sheriff helicopters flying over our house at 3 o'clock in the morning with spotlights in our backyard.
But I would say that the straw that broke the camel's back was when I was leaving work one day and pulling out of the parking garage. 2 men with guns came up to my car and tried to carjack me. They had just robbed somebody at gunpoint. That's when I had enough. It was broad daylight. There were people walking up and down the sidewalk. Nobody was coming to help me. And that's when I became a prepper.
My wife and I built a home high in the Appalachian Mountains, so the marauders will never find us. I've got over 15,000 gallons of water stored in catchment tanks and on a pond in the property. We've got over 40 goats, rabbits, chickens, and ducks to provide us with all the protein we will ever need.
We're preparing for an EMP.
Coronal mass ejections are pockets of electrically charged gas that erupt from the sun every day. If these ejections impact the Earth's atmosphere, it can create an electromagnetic pulse that could knock out all electronic devices within its range.
EMP will take out an entire power grid, every chip, every computer, every automobile. Life as we know it will no longer exist.
You're going to have a lot of death. The ones that have survived, they've either survived because they are prepared or they're the takers.
Society will fall apart within days. There won't be any supplies in the grocery stores. People are going to literally kill each other for what little scraps there are.
It'll be the good against the evil. Only the strong will survive.
High ground is the best ground to have. It's secluded, makes it more defensible than any other piece of property.
We have a 360-degree view. We can see anybody that's coming and going.
Jane and Rick left their high-paying corporate jobs, their home, and their idea of the American dream to move off the grid and prepare for an impending disaster. In only 4 years, they have turned 53 acres of raw land into a high-yielding prepper compound with several natural water sources and livestock.
Girls, how you doing? Who wants some alfalfa?
But at the core of their survival plan is a single prep that will provide them with food, medicine, sanitation, and even defense.
Blackberry. Pear.
And it is all hidden in plain sight.
After an EMP, food's going to be scarce. And that's why we've created a camouflaged food forest that ultimately provides all the food that you would ever need, but it's disguised to look like overgrown underbrush.
It's actually a Garden of Eden because there's any type of fruit that you want, any type of berry that you want, any type of vegetable, any type of herb that you want, it's all there.
So any marauders or any people that are desperately searching for food are going to end up passing us by because we just don't look like we have any food growing here.
Rick's camouflaged food forest has more than 170 carefully chosen plant species.
This is mustard growing underneath an apple tree.
Planted in concentric circles, intended to mimic pre-agrarian growing structures, the plants share complementary nutrients. So the garden has up to 5 times the output per square inch than a typical furrowed farm.
You've got these little mini ecosystems that surround a central fruit or nut tree. And then around that is a shrub layer, which are your blueberries, your blackberries, your elderberries. And then around that, you've got medicinal herbs or your cooking herbs. And those actually provide a defensive perimeter around all your other fruit, because that is where your predatory wasp and pollinators reside. So they would kill the bad bugs who would normally be eating your good fruit and vegetables. I knew that I needed pollinating insects as part of my overall strategy. A typical honeybee will travel as far as 5 miles to find pollen and nectar. They don't have to go more than a few feet to get it in my garden. And more trips to the garden ultimately relate to more honey that they can make.
Jane and Rick have 7 beehives that produce over 420 pounds of honey each year.
It's actually different shades of honey based on what they were gathering at the time.
If an EMP wiped out the industrial food chain, their bees could provide them with enough calories to live for 240 days. But their honey doesn't just give them food.
A couple months after an EMP, you're going to have a lot of disease, you're going to have a lot of infection, and cleanliness is going to be huge. Hygiene is going to be of utmost importance.
And their honey can deliver a prepper's clean sweep.
Milk and honey, the cleanser, it's been around forever. In fact, they say that Cleopatra actually bathed in milk and honey. By using a teaspoon of honey and a tablespoon of milk, you've got cleanser for your whole body. I've heard a lot of people say if an EMP happened, that they would use leaves for toilet paper. To me, I looked at all of those leaves and they just didn't seem like a viable option.
Stockpiling toilet paper is expensive and takes up space that could be used for storing food and water.
I have invented something that I call the honey hydrant. I like to add herbs to my honey hydrant. I'm going to use some rosemary and some mint. I have them here, they're plentiful and they're healthy.
Direct contact with fecal matter can lead to exposure to over 200 known pathogens, including E. coli and Salmonella, which can lead to infection and even death.
It's a portable bidet, or a survival bidet. And I'm just going to put about a cup of the combined steeped herbs into the honey hydrant. It's a refreshing, cooling addition to the water. It's just a garden sprayer with just a little modified hook on the wand. I always joke and say you have a full-on blast, or you can have the nice summer mist.
But it's not only disease that Rick and Jane's survival garden can help defend against.
We have everything that we need here to survive. We just need to defend this property when the marauders show up. I like using thorny plants as a defensive perimeter because they really don't give away that you've got something valuable behind that barrier. But if they try to get across, then they're going to get torn up with thorns.
Today, Rick is fortifying his home security system by adding nature's version of barbed wire, the Osage orange shrub, which has been used by farmers to confine livestock since the 1800s.
This is a layer of really good soil right here. I'm going to test to see how deep it is. You can see the thorns are pretty sharp. And I'm going to put some plant food in there to start with and mix that with the natural soil. Break it up a little bit. This is my nitrogen-rich water from the pond. It's got a lot of nutrients in it because the ducks go to the bathroom in the pond and so do the fish. So it's got a lot of nitrogen in it. That's good for the plants. Man, those are sharp. After an EMP, any marauder that tries to come through this fence is going to end up looking just like this.
If an intruder gets through their passive, non-lethal first circle of defense, their Osage orange barbed wire, Rick and Jane have a second, more active circle of defense.
If we could deliver that pepper spray using one of these sprayers, just set up, by the front door. So, and we could do it in a way that was entirely remote, so we wouldn't have to face them.
Honestly, you wouldn't know. We might have to get some more flowers or something like that, but...
Yeah.
A dispersal system that will use their garden-harvested hot peppers to emit an extremely potent, yet potentially fatal, homemade pepper spray.
The The only entrance to the house is essentially through the front door. But we've set up the sidewalk so that essentially it's a kill zone.
I mean, if it worked, it'd be awesome, because that would be just like the ultimate surprise.
Yep, for sure.
Okay.
And they can't get past the Osage orange because they're going to be all torn up.
Chili pepper heat is measured in Scoville heat units. The Trinidad Moruga scorpion, which Rick and Jane grow in their garden, measures 2 million SHUs, roughly the same potency as 400 jalapenos, making it one of the world's hottest peppers, and the ultimate homemade pepper spray.
It's incredibly dangerous, this stuff. I'm wearing a mask and gloves and goggles because if that ever gets in your eyes or in your nose or in your throat, you're done. I'm separating the seeds from the peppers. I'm crushing those skins and then mixing that with garlic and with oil to create a concentrate of this hot pepper.
I would suggest that you be incredibly careful that some type of fumes or something doesn't come back up on you.
I can definitely tell these are the hottest chili peppers on the planet because I'm just dying here. We should have done this outside. This is just bad.
But my face is burning.
Yeah, I can feel it through the mask. Why don't you back up?
I can't breathe. Can you breathe?
Jane and Rick Austin left their white-collar jobs to live high in the Appalachian Mountains, where they created a camouflaged food forest, which they believe will provide them with everything they need after a catastrophic EMP. But their garden of good can also be a garden of evil. Today, the couple is using the homegrown Trinidad Moruga scorpion pepper to cook up a potentially fatal homemade pepper spray.
I can definitely tell these are the hottest chili peppers on the planet because I'm just dying. We should have done this outside. This is just bad.
But my face is burning.
Yeah, I can feel it through the mask. Why don't you back up?
Are you all right? Okay, are you okay?
Yeah, the smoke is just getting to me. It's coming right through the mouth. It made me cough.
I mean, it choked me, and I couldn't get my breath.
Like somebody had their hands around my throat.
This is an awesome perimeter defense. It is so powerful. Can you imagine your eyes burning out and you're breathing this in? It would just totally incapacitate somebody.
If intruders make it past the first two non-lethal defenses, the Osage Orange barbed wire and the Trinidad Moruga scorpion pepper spray, Rick and Jane's garden has another, more deadly defense in bloom.
We've got a number of plants in my garden that are poisonous. Foxglove is a deadly poison. I'm picking foxglove leaves to save for the future. And then I will dry them out on the screen.
All parts of the foxglove plant are poisonous. It can cause diarrhea, convulsions, and ultimately lead to death.
After the leaves are dry, we're going to put them in a little spice rack. In the event that we have some undesirable guests staying with us in the future, we will have foxglove available so that we can serve our guests a special meal. You know, for someone that wants to leave their head in the sand and think that the EMP could never happen, they might think that someone like myself is paranoid. They need to start thinking seriously and start getting prepared, because those that are not prepared are going to end up being victims.
If an EMP was to strike, you couldn't go to a store. You couldn't go to a gas station. You couldn't go to anything. It would be life as we know it would cease. A lot of people think that the government is going to be able to come and give them the things that they need, and unfortunately, that's not going to happen.
To determine how long you could initially survive a catastrophe, the experts Practical Preppers have scored your preps in 5 categories of 20 points each for a total possible score of 100. Food. Your camouflage food forest will provide you with a rich and diverse diet, 20 out of 20 points. Water, 18 out of 20 points. Shelter, 18 out of 20 points. Security, 15 out of 20 points. You have created a sustainable and fortified property with the minimum workload required to produce your own food, water, and electricity. 18 X Factor points. Overall, you get an 89 out of 100. You have 20 months initial survival time.
I think that's a fair assessment. There's always things we can do to improve. We're always preparing. The truth of the matter is, though, no matter what the score was, it really wouldn't matter because we're not playing some game here. This is our life, and it's all about prepping.
The sun enters a period of maximum solar storm activity every 11 years. While estimates on the odds of a monster solar storm occurring in the next decade range from 6 to 12%, the majority of solar flares pose no threat to America's power infrastructure. But experts are looking into additional measures to protect the grid.